Thank you for joining me here on WCNC Plus. I'm Jane Monreal. Right now, we are in the final countdown to the 2024 election. We've seen millions of votes already cast in this election, but there are questions over the security of your vote. Here's WCNC Charlotte's Miles Harris.
We are seeing more and more people making their way out to polling locations like this and casting their ballot early. But there are questions that are being raised about just how secure these ballots are. Well, we did get a chance to talk to the Board of Elections as well as local organizations within the Mecklenburg area, and they stress that North Carolina is actually one of the safest places where you can cast your ballot.
We keep a tight rope on all of that ballot security.
Voting in the Carolinas, not just a big deal for ballot placers.
That's the most important thing that we do.
But the ones securing them as well.
And everything we do is the security of the ballot, not only of the paper ballot itself, but the secrecy of your vote.
Michael Dickerson is the director for the Mecklenburg County Board of Elections. He lays out just how they protect every single vote.
Once you're done voting, that ballot comes in, and we have various mediums that we keep it on. A thumb drive to keep the results on. We have the paper copy here to have a copy of your ballot. So all that's extremely important for us. So much as to we've actually added card readers for security entrance to certain areas of this facility so that nobody can come in and come out.
North Carolina has the best practices in most of the election administration aspects.
And it's not just local board of directors weighing in. Former Charlotte Mayor Jennifer Roberts stressing to voters that this election will be treated fairly.
They are bipartisan. Everything that is contested is looked at by a Republican and a Democrat. That's what makes our system so great.
This election season, countless political ads have probably come across your TV screen or showed up on your phone. In some of these commercials, you might have noticed clips from newscasts, out of context snippets. Vanessa Rufus verifies why campaigns are allowed to do this without getting permission from news stations or newscasters being sampled.
A common tactic in political ads is to take short clips from newscasts with headlines or statements that campaigns then use to support their platform. In fact, one ad from North Carolina gubernatorial candidate Mark Robinson has been running in various forms and sources a headline I read on TV a while back about crime data. While the news story I read didn't have anything to do with Robinson's opponent, Josh Stein, the clip was used to attack Stein's effectiveness fighting crime. For the first time in 13 years, North Carolina's violent crime rate is higher than the national rate. Some of you at home have reached out to me asking why I would agree to be used in a political ad. I didn't. So what happened? We're asking, do political campaigns have to ask permission from news stations or newscasters before sampling clips from newscasts for an ad? Our sources, U.S. copyright law, the Federal Communications Commission, and Winthrop University political science professor Scott Huffman.
Based on the fair use doctrine, campaigns can pull public videos, newscasts, and use them.
The fair use doctrine is a legal framework that outlines under what circumstances copyright protected works like a newscast could be used without a license. Those circumstances could be criticism, commentary, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. And there are multiple factors dictating whether sampling from the work counts as fair use.
One rule is they have to increase its value or make something added to it or give commentary to it, which of course a political ad is, which is why political ads can freely use newscasts.
So if a campaign does use a news station's work without permission, couldn't the station just not run the ad? Well, not really. FCC regulations say TV stations cannot censor material from a political candidate. It has to accept ads from all parties with reasonable access, equal opportunity access, and at the lowest unit rate. So we can verify, yes, political campaigns can use news clips without permission, and furthermore, TV stations have to run them if it comes from the candidate themselves. With your Verify, I'm Vanessa Rufus.
Now to the race for North Carolina Labor Secretary. That position oversees more than 4 million workers statewide, and the two candidates for the role have some big ideas for the job. Democrat Braxton Winston, former mayor pro tem here in Charlotte, and Republican Luke Farley, an attorney from Wake County. Flashpoint anchor Ben Thompson sat down with both candidates. Here's part of his conversation with Braxton Winston.
We're joined now by Braxton Winston, a familiar face to a lot of folks here in Charlotte after serving on city council for a number of years. Welcome back to the show. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me, Ben. Great to be back here.
All right, so tell me, if you could write the job description for what you think labor commissioner is, what is it?
The labor commissioner's number one job is to ensure that every worker goes home alive and safe at the end of the workday. It also is there to make sure that everybody is getting all the money, all the wages that they earn, and that all work is dignified and workers feel that dignity in their work in their workplace.
So knowing that, you also know that for more than 2 decades now, it's been held by a Republican. What difference do you think would be made by someone like yourself, a Democrat, running the agency?
Well, Ben, you know, one thing to remember, I think, is important to understand is that, you know, labor issues have always been political, but they really should not be partisan, right? What is partisan, again, about expecting to come home with a fair day's pay after a fair day's work, or the ability to go to work in healthy and safe environments, or be able to get a drink of water, or use the bathroom, or protect yourself from the hot sun? But the truth is, you know, I'm going up against a guy who is a 39-year-old lawyer who's never been elected to public office in his life, and he has made his practice defending companies, construction companies predominantly, who are under investigation by the Department of Labor. So in this race, the choice couldn't be more clear between the two. Who do you want to be the lead advocate for workers in North Carolina? A worker like you, or your boss's attorney?
You've said before that you think workers in North Carolina are paid less, get fewer benefits, and are subject to more union busing actions than workers in any other state. You also know that we have been ranked best in business for a number of years. How do you strike a balance between those two things? Because I know you say you can, but how?
Well, you know, again, I don't think the idea of being number one for business and workers should be seen as mutually exclusive, because, in fact, they're not mutually exclusive. Where do businesses want to set up? They want to go to places where the workforce is strong, resilient, diverse, and educated. Workers want their bosses to make a lot of money, you know, expand opportunities, and build wealth in communities. They just want a fair situation at work. And I think those two things can be achieved if you prioritize. And frankly, our state has prioritized this over the years in the past. I think that's how we get to the situation we're at today, where our economic trajectory is going up and to the right. We have a history of investing in public education from K through 12 through universities and beyond. That is under attack, right? That was part of the reason why we fell from number one in state to do business to number two. We also have fallen behind because we are not investing in the infrastructure that builds our communities and strengthens the things that workforces need to strive. This was also cited by CNBC over this past year. So they are literally saying, if you don't invest in your workforce, if you don't invest in your people, your situation for business will degrade over time. And I think that's, to me, it's common sense. You've
said the state's labor department is understaffed.
Yes.
What does that mean for the folks at home in an appreciable way?
So 1 in 4 safety compliance positions, those folks that are investigating when there's a workplace accident or workplace death, or the division that is inspecting all the elevators and amusement park rides, 1 in 4 of those positions goes unfilled. So when you have a position where there's 106 positions budgeted, but only about 85 or 90 that are being staffed at any given time, that means that over 4 million workers in North Carolina, over 400,000 businesses are reliant on that very small amount of people. And I think we taxpayers should get that full dollar worth of taxes that they're paying on time, every time when they contact the Department of Labor.
Minimum wage right now is $7.25. Some states make it higher than that. Should we?
no worker who's working 40 hours a week should live in poverty. And frankly, that is what our minimum wage is. It's below poverty wages. Workers need to get paid better in North Carolina. When I was here first on City Council here in Charlotte, our lowest paid worker was getting paid $13.80 an hour, despite the data showing us that the living wage in Charlotte was anywhere from $17 to $21 an hour. When I left City Council, the lowest paid worker in the city was getting paid over $22 an hour. So these things are possible, especially if governments are doing it with very limited resources. There's no reason why our companies and corporations in our state should not be.
Do you advocate for it, I assume, if you are elected into office?
For sure. The minimum wage is a legislative issue, so it's not something that the Commissioner of Labor can necessarily change on its own. But the Commissioner of Labor is part of the responsibility is to build a workforce. In order to do that, you need wages.
That brings me to a question I asked last week of the Democratic superintendent candidate for public instruction. And that is, assuming we have a Republican General Assembly, which I think a lot of people, there might not be a supermajority, but it more than likely will still be. How do you, no matter how good you think your ideas are, how do you work with them?
Well, you go and talk. You go and have conversations. You show up, and you find places to find common ground. That's the way I've worked when I was on City Council. But going up to Raleigh and talking with a lot of Republican leadership, you don't have rose-colored glasses on to think that you're going to get to be able to change the way everybody thinks. But you could take a practical effect of sitting down with people, finding places that you have common ground, and focusing on those common grounds. And if you are not able to find common ground, then you have to move on to the next person to get stuff done for the people of North Carolina.
Yeah, I think you've said before you're a union member. This is a right-to-work state.
Yeah.
How do you plan to support unions here in North Carolina?
Well, there's nothing more American than the idea and function of a labor union. It says it in our preamble of our Constitution. We, the people, in order to form a more perfect union, do ordain and establish this Constitution. The Constitution is the collectively bargained contract that we all abide by, and that is there to help us adjudicate our conflicts, while protecting all of our rights. The job of the Commissioner of Labor is to stand with workers, and that's what unions are. Unions are organizations of workers that come and organize themselves. So I think it's the job of Commissioner of Labor, whether or not workers are part of unions or not, to stand with those workers.
You enjoying watching City Council from afar. This past week got Red Line and Eastland Yards, things that you dealt with when you were on City Council.
There's some great things that are going on, and there's some challenges. To be completely honest, I'm very concerned with the direction of the transit plan. The idea was that it's supposed to be a kind of backbone to a larger regional network that is needed to keep people moving in and through Mecklenburg County, and I'm highly concerned that the plan that's going forward will not be that, and that we are considering investing in two different Charlottes. I thought that was something that we were supposed to be getting away from. That does not seem like the case with what Charlotte City Council is considering right now.
All right, Braxton Winston. Braxton, thanks. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Braxton Winston faces Luke Farley in the race. Here's his conversation with Flashpoint anchor Ben Thompson.
I am joined now by the Republican candidate for Labor Commissioner, Luke Farley. Luke, thanks for coming on. Welcome to Flashpoint. Nice to have you.
Ben, pleasure's all mine. Thanks for having me down in the Queen City.
Absolutely. A pleasure to have you. First question, if you could write a job description for this job, Labor Commissioner, what would it be?
Keeping workers safe, healthy, and employed. The number one job of the North Carolina Labor Commissioner is to keep our working men and women safe and healthy, to make sure everybody goes home at the end of the workday. But for me, it doesn't end there. I want every worker to have a fantastic job to go to the next day. So that's the number one responsibility of the North Carolina Labor Commissioner.
So as you know, CNBC has said that we're best for business, although I think this year we were number 2. But for a couple of years, we were number 1. We're still up there at the top. But as you know, on the other side of that comes some worker issues. The Observer reports that a worker dies in the state every 10 days. Oxfam America found that North Carolina is the worst state for workers. A spokesperson telling the Daily Tar Heel, the newspaper up at Chapel Hill, if you have the same job in North Carolina that you had in California, you'd be paid much more in California, and you have a lot more protections at work. Even something as simple as if your kid is sick and needs to stay home from school, you can take a sick day and not lose your paycheck. Understanding that the Republican point of view on some of these things is regulations can suffocate a business and you don't want to have over-regulation. Is there a point to be made there? Do the 4 million workers of North Carolina deserve more protections?
Well, there's always more we can do to improve things for our working men and women in this state. But I believe the very best way to improve conditions for workers in this state is to create a hot job market. I'd ask anybody, think about the times in your own working life when you were best able to negotiate with your employer for a higher salary, better benefits, better leave time. That was when you had a hot job market. And so one thing we can do above everything else to empower workers in this state is create a hot job market, create demand for workers, because when workers are in demand, they've got power and leverage over their employer.
So you said you think that this office can be a secret weapon for economic development. Explain.
Yeah. So when businesses are looking, job creators are looking to expand their operations or even relocate to North Carolina, one of the things they're looking at is, what's the regulatory environment? Is this a place where the regulations are enforced fairly, evenly, and consistently across the board? And when that environment exists, job creators want to come here and they want to bring jobs with them. And so the Labor Department can play this crucial role in creating an environment and conditions where people want to do business. And when they want to do business here, jobs come here. Jobs mean salaries paid, salaries mean mortgages paid. And so it's a rising tide that lifts all boats. And so the Labor Department can play a crucial role in that.
Do you think, we talked about the survey from CNBC and we talked about the Oxfam, do you think that you can have a state that is best in business and best in workers? And if so, why aren't we there?
Absolutely.
You've had a number of Republicans in this position for years now.
Well, absolutely, you can be best in business and best for workers, and those things go hand in hand, right? It's the businesses that create the jobs, and it's the workers that keep the businesses running. And so an approach that looks after both, especially our small businesses, is the right way to go. I mean, by and large, most people are employed in a small business in this state.
So then I'll ask you the tough question, what have your predecessors, Republicans, not done right?
Well, there's always just more to be done. I think there's been a lot of good progress. North Carolina, for instance, our rate of workplace injuries is one of the lowest in the country and below the national average. So we've been doing a lot of things right. We always can get that number lower, but things are going in the right direction, but there's more to be done.
Minimum wage right now, $7.25 nationally. Some states hike that up more. What do you think of it right now?
So I'm interested in real wage growth and not artificial wage growth, right? Changing wages in a statute on a piece of paper, I want to go beyond that. I want to see real wage growth for our workers. And that's what I talk about. The best way to empower workers in this state is to have a hot job market, because when workers are in demand, they can dictate terms of salary, benefits, and things like that. And so that's what I'm focused on, is real wage growth for our employees in this state. The other thing to keep in mind, too, if you look at California, right? California just jacked its minimum wage for fast food workers 25%. And what happened? 1,200 pizza delivery drivers were fired overnight. Restaurants are closing. So we have to be realistic that we want real wage growth, not just wage growth on paper.
The conservative case for having too many regulations sometimes can hurt businesses. In your view, broadly speaking, are unions a good thing or a bad thing?
I think where we are with unions is exactly where we need to be, which is to say workers have a right to join and form a union if they want to. They also have the right not to join a union if they don't want to. And to me, that's the balanced approach. I think that's where the law is today. That's where I'd like to see the law stay. I think that respects both workers' rights and individual rights to decide for themselves what organizations they want to join.
Let's talk about a proposed something. It's called the federal heat standard. It would offer protections to folks working under certain hot conditions. Sounds exactly what it is. What do you think is wrong with something like this?
So I absolutely think we need to protect workers from the heat. I mean, over the years, I've had jobs working outside North Carolina summer. I know how oppressive it can be to work out in North Carolina in July and August. So we absolutely need to protect our workers. The question is, what's the best way to do it? Do we take a one-size-fits-all mandate from the Biden administration, or do we have a North Carolina solution that's tailored to North Carolina's climate, North Carolina's workers, and the jobs that North Carolina's workers do? And that's what I favor, a simplified, streamlined regulation that protects North Carolina workers with a North Carolina focus. And as Labor Commissioner, one of the very first things I'm going to do is sit down with all the stakeholders, employees, employers, and workplace safety experts to figure out what is the right North Carolina solution.
All right. candidate for Labor Commissioner Luke Farley. Luke, thanks for coming on. Good to see you.
Pleasure's all mine.
With the election just moments away, health experts are putting the warning out, saying millions of Americans are having heightened levels of anxiety, stress, and uncertainty. But are there things we can do to curb some of that stress? Here's Megan Bragg.
An American Psychiatric Association annual mental health poll shows that of those surveyed, 73% say the election is a trigger for their anxiety. So are there things we can do to calm our nerves? Let's get the facts. Our sources are the American Psychiatric Association and Colleen Marshall, Chief Clinical Officer at Mental Health Clinic Two Chairs.
So we're seeing more of the election sort of impacting how people feel about the election.
Marshall says it's important to note that stress and anxiety are a normal part of life, but knowing how much they impact your daily life is critical.
Is it impacting your relationships, your ability to sleep, and or impacting your ability to concentrate or do work?
Along with seeking professional help, Marshall says there are some simple things we can do to reduce some of the election stress.
The one that I would focus on with the election is boundaries. So how do you think about how much of this material do you consume? And that's unique for everybody. It's how much it's really thinking about for yourself is what happens when you're consuming that.
But you don't have to take away all forms of media. Marshall says it's more about redirecting your attention elsewhere.
You can choose not to read it, choose not to click on the story. You can choose to click on something else that brings you joy and happiness.
Marshall says consuming election content isn't just what you watch or read on your TV or smartphone either.
Highly likely that this is a common conversation these days. So it could be something in your personal life with friends and family that it's coming up. It could be having dinner with someone who's voting for a candidate I'm not voting for. I might want to set a boundary with them.
Now, in the end, Marshall says it's all about finding things that make you happy and bring you joy, like exercising, sleeping well, and focusing on positives like practicing gratitude. With your Verify, I'm Megan Bragg.
As we count down the days until Decision 2024, we want to make sure you're prepared to cast your vote. Text the word election to 704-329-3600 and we'll send our 2024 election guide right to your phone. And don't forget to join us right here on WCNC Plus on election night. We'll have live coverage starting at 7 p.m. when polls close. Our team of reporters and experts will be breaking down the races as results come in across the Carolinas. I'm Jane Monreal. Thanks for joining us here on WCNC Plus. The news continues right now.